Centaur Press welcomes you to Live from People's Park. Donald O'Donovan reads from his work. 6 selections from 5 novels. A Pleasant Show of Enthusiasm from Orgasmo.
I got a call from Stars, Milton Nastarza, a cinematographer on the skids. Or at least that's how I remembered him. We'd both been poor in Paris, but life's a grand adventure when you're young, and we never minded being without things like toilet paper, deodorant, and toothpaste. Later on, of course, there's no denying that lengthy binge has landed Stars more than once in the street. But now, apparently, the lad's desperado days were behind him. "I'm back, man," he told me on the phone. "I'm really back. I had lunch yesterday with Danny DeVito and Naomi Watts." Stars was on a roll. A beach house in Malibu and let's work together on a script. I didn't have 2 nickels, but I grabbed a taxi to Malibu, and sure enough, Stars emerged from the beach house and paid with a couple of crisp Benjamins. A smashing escort service girl was just leaving. She took my taxi, in fact. We went inside, sat on a landing barge-sized divan overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and passed the bong, and Stars poured us each a cutty-in water. Stars looked good, I have to say that. His hair was short and spiky, and he'd grown a prickly blonde beard. Stars was, in fact, a regular prickly pear of a man, always getting into situations. Wherever he landed, he'd stick like a burr, and soon there'd be a ruckus of some sort. Stars had big dreams, grandiose dreams, if you like, but he had the stuff to make them come true, too. Or at least I thought he did. He'd been a Steadicam operator in Hollywood before he started in on the sauce. I was feeling pretty optimistic. "You remember Chief Dan George?" Stars began as we clinked our glasses. "Great guy, a natural actor. Remember in Little Big Man when the chief said that thing about a pleasant show of enthusiasm? That's what I told Bambi, that girl who just left. You saw her, didn't you? What did you think?" "No, wait, before you answer, listen to this. 'What do you expect for $300? That's what she said to me. "What do you expect for $300? "What do I expect for $300? I said. "I'll tell you what I expect for $300. A pleasant show of enthusiasm. That's what I expect for $300. A pleasant show of enthusiasm." We went back outside and inspected his 6-foot San Pedro cactus, and then he told me about Sylvia. All this, the beach house, the pool, the BMW, is Sylvia's. None of this is mine, you understand. I just happened along like Brer Rabbit. I hopped into her life. "She adopted you?" "Something like that. We met on the Internet. She's divorced. She's a landscape painter. Beautiful stuff. I'll show you tomorrow. Say, do you want to get some girls?" "Maybe later. Let's talk about the script." "Script? There's no script. It's all in here. A beautiful reporter is possessed by the soul of a girl who was murdered by her evil stepfather 20 years before." "Okay, go on." "She hires a handsome exorcist who promptly gets possessed by the ghost of the stepfather." "Go on." "So they're going to play it all over again, the murder, a rerun, unless—" "Unless what?" "Well, you tell me. How does she get away from this guy?" "Let's see. She meets another handsome guy, an archer, in the woods." "Okay, good. He's carrying a compound bow." "I like it." "Then they meet a hermit who tells them that if they dip an arrow in the reporter's blood and shoot it into the exorcist's heart, the stepfather's ghost will split and the curse will be lifted." "Well, does the exorcist die?" "No." "Well, somebody's got to die. This is a fucking horror film, man." "Well, the stepfather dies. That's the idea." "More. We need blood." "The exorcist dies. Tell me the exorcist dies." "Okay, he dies. The exorcist dies and the stepfather dies." "Well, what about the hermit? Does the hermit die?" "Okay, he dies. The hermit dies." The next day we went sailing. I was scared, but I didn't let on. It was beautiful, I have to admit. We were racing across the water, completely silent, except for the waves crashing on our bow and the howling wind. That night we went to dinner at the Seven Seas, a posh restaurant owned by Sylvia's ex, Norm. We both ordered the king crab. Norm came to our table and shook hands. He was Italian, big, sinister. But Norm was a prince, it turned out. When it came time to pay, we found out he'd comped us. King crab, champagne, the works. After dinner, we went to the Las Palmas dance hall downtown. A taxi dance joined across the street from the old United Artists building. It's a great place for buying affection if you've got the jack. I danced with Svetlana. She was Russian. Svetlana wanted $100 to go to a hotel. I didn't have that kind of money on me, and it was too early in the game to be hitting stars up for a loan. A week went by, then two. We'd become regulars at Las Palmas, and our days were filled with eating and drinking. Stars would order out pizza, Chinese, crab cakes Dijon, and veal scallopini from the Café Spruzzo, or filet mignon, lobster, you name it. Nothing was too good for us. My God, it's been so long since I felt like a human being, I almost said, one fine sunny afternoon, as we were sitting in the gazebo with a bottle of Bollinger and spoonfuls of beluga on little crackers, but I caught myself in time. You should never let people, even close friends, know how desperate you are. It scares them off. The script was moving right along. We'd talk, then I'd go and type. I started running lines with Svetlana. She was an aspiring actress, it turned out. Like all the girls at Las Palmas. Like all of the girls at all of the dime dance joints in L.A. Dreaming their Hollywood dreams while they dance with lonely, desperate men who are dreaming of getting it on with them. There was another issue. It had to do with Stars's mental state. Back before the Paris days, Stars's moms had committed him to a lunatic asylum for 72 hours, and he was afraid she was going to do it again, even though she was in Texas and he was in California. As a result, he was half nuts with paranoia. One day, so he said, he was tending to the sailboat, and 6 squads of F-16s came screeching overhead at just a couple 100 feet. Stars dove for cover and banged his head on the dock. The next day, he was out by the sailboat again, and an Apache helicopter landed on the front lawn. That chopper was real. I saw it touch down just a few yards from the beach house, and a soldier in tan camis got out packing an M16. It was probably just maneuvers or something, but Stars was spooked, and I had to admit it was pretty eerie. Right after that, Sylvia, Stars's quality woman, popped in, wearing a floppy hat. It's a type, these rich women with their floppy hats. They take you over. But Stars must have known what he was getting into when he put himself up for adoption. It was a pretty sweet deal, though. He didn't have to give her the time all that often. Plus, she was a nice-looking woman for 61. I saw right away, however, that Sylvia disapproved of me. I guess she could tell I wasn't a member of the cucumber sandwich set. Then Stars latched on to Svetlana. I should have seen it coming when they started in on the banana kush and the vodka. It was a thing with them right from the get-go, as though they'd invented that particular combination. Svetlana was crazy about the sailing, too, another thing they had in common. And then they ganged up on me about the blood. We need more blood. They were united on that. So I wrote in a flashback of the original murder. The stepfather stabs her 81 times with a flensing knife, I told them. Then a woodsman chops off the stepfather's head with a double-bitted axe. I made Svetlana run the lines with me. She knew I was pissed off, and she understood perfectly well that I was the woodsman, and that it was Stars's head that I wanted to chop off, not the stepfather's. This calamity didn't sink our boat, but the next one did. Sylvia threw a huge party at the beach house, entertaining a regular battalion of her upscale New York friends, a local poetry circle, and a glittery Polish count, who swept her off her feet that very night. This new twosome, Sylvia and the count, were resident of the handsome Archer and the beautiful reporter in my screenplay, so I wrote them into the script, as doppelgangers to my regular characters. Then I wrote Stars and Svetlana into the screenplay. I was writing everybody into the screenplay. But I felt bad for Stars, even though he'd stolen my girl. Stars didn't see what was coming with the Count and Sylvia. He didn't sense the finality of what was going to go down. But I did. Sylvia would marry the Count. Stars's allowance would be cut off, and we would be evicted. That was how we ended up working at the Seven Seas, Stars and me, in the scullery. The dish room was called the scullery because the owner, Norm, Sylvia's ex, was retired Navy. It was damn decent of Norm to hire us on, but the work in the scullery was brutal with only 3 dishwashers. Stars and me and our supervisor, a little beer keg of a man named Joe Gorski. Joe Gorski was 4.5 feet tall, full of muscle, and he was mad for work. His hands had only 3 fingers on them, and he had a speech defect of some sort. "Got big or go home," he'd shout. "Go big or go home." As runty and deformed as he was, Joe Gorski was a natural leader. There was something heroic about the man. He'd been toiling in the scullery for 14 years, and apparently he'd loved every minute of it. Charisma's a hard thing to pin down, but Joe Gorski had it in spades. His esprit de corps was contagious, and it spurred me on to work like a demon. "Ugh, mug, mug, dog, pop, wug, wug, wug," he told me one day when Stars was out sick. "Just you and me in the pot and pan room, baby." Stars and I were sinking lower and lower. We were sleeping on Joe Gorski's floor. This wasn't Paris poor, the romantic poverty of idealistic young artists. It was real poverty, third world poverty, the deep night desolation that creeps in on rat's feet and shreds your soul. You get down too far, you lose your edge, that wafer-thin buffer zone that separates the human being from the beasts. And the street comes looking for you. You start out eating veal scallopini in a Malibu beach house, and you wind up living in a cardboard box on San Julian Street. Stars was losing his grip. The paranoia was getting worse. He was seeing the soldier in tan camis everywhere. It had to do with the drinking, of course. Then, too, he and Svetlana were dropping double stacks of X every night. He was constantly talking about the glory days in Hollywood. "I played ping-pong with Gene Hackman on the set of the Raoul Tenenbaums," he'd mutter fiercely as he wrestled with a charred sauté pan. "I pissed in Carrie Fisher's bathroom." He'd go on, too, about the lunch with Danny DeVito and Naomi Watts, which he finally admitted took place not just the other day, but back in 2005. On top of that, he wanted to go back to the beach house and cut down the 6-foot San Pedro cactus and extract the mescaline. The end product would be worth around 2 G's on the street, he assured me. We'd need chemicals, sodium hydroxide and benzene. I didn't like the sound of it. "By the way, do you have the ending yet?" he asked me one day when we were elbow-deep in dirty dishes. "The ending? The ending of what?" "Oh, the screenplay." Maybe. The exorcist tries to escape in a boat, and she fires the magic arrow into his heart, and the boat bursts into flames. A Viking funeral. Yeah, sort of. Bring it. I was over Svetlana, but I met another Russian girl at Las Palmas, Katrinka. Katrinka wanted $100, but I talked her down to 75 that I'd managed to borrow from Joe Gorski. We went to a by-the-hour hotel on San Julian. She got silly drunk, on purpose, it seemed to me. She flopped around, consumed with laughter. Then she began weeping like a goat and talking Russian. I was pretty sure it was all an act. It was her sly way of spoiling a hard-on. But I was determined. Just the same, it was over in minutes. I was furious. Now she wanted to talk about Tolstoy. "You're disappointed," she chirped triumphantly. "Tell me something. I'm curious. Just what is it that you want from a woman, anyway?" That was an easy one. "A pleasant show of enthusiasm," I said. Then Stars got picked up on a public drunk charge that turned into a 5150. A nurse called the restaurant from the psycho ward on Beverly. I got Stars out of there, but he was thrashed. "I pissed in Carrie Fisher's bathroom," he kept saying. "I pissed in Carrie Fisher's bathroom." After a few more days at the scullery, we both decided that Stars would be better off in the nut house. "It's 3 hots and a cot," I prattled glibly. As soon as I'd handed Stars over to the nurse at the lunatic asylum, I began to breathe easier. At least his hash was settled. I'd survive one way or another, I figured. "A Viking funeral? My God, it's beautiful," I muttered to myself the next day as I scraped some glazed-on guck off a six-pan. She fires the magic arrow into his heart, and the boat bursts into flames.